The Flash 792, Jeremy Adams writing with Roger Cruz on the art. So this is the next part of the 1 Minute War, and we get some practical kind of follow-ups to what's going on. The characters are trying to figure out what their plan should be. The bulk of the issue focuses on Wallace and Bart, because Bart runs off half-cocked to try and... Because the adults mention briefly that, we need to get some of their like tech to see how it works with the Speed Force.
Yeah, and we can't, and Jay's like, we can't get in because the door closes so quick, even for us. So, which leads Bart to have an idea to live up to his name of Impulse, which I love. Every time he mentions that, I do love that he's, like, I don't think things through. What do you expect? And I like the dynamic between him and Wallace, right? Where, Wallace he's still young, but he's not impulsive, right? He has better control over his actions and thoughts than Bart does. So it makes them feel distinct, and they're not just, two Kid Flash-esque characters, right? They're both unique in their own way, and it showcases how that is by having them interact, which I love. I would read a miniseries of these two, just teaming up for nonsense,
Oh, sure.
Based off of this one alone. And again, it shows that Jeremy Adams has a very great grasp on these characters across the board, not just Wally and Barry and all of them, but down the whole line of the family.
Yeah, so obviously there's a bit of aftermath to Iris's death, which the characters are all really somber about. But they start talking about all this stuff, which leads to the kids racing off. Well, it leads to Bart racing off, and Wallace goes over to catch him and try to get him to come back, but that doesn't obviously work out for him. And we get that the what's his name? The Admiral is like pissed that no one's caught the organics. He wants them all dead now. He's getting pissed. So it said all this stuff. And we see what was her name? Mistress Death?
Miss Murder.
Miss Murder, that was it.
Which I could tell you who she is now. Definitely a dark multiverse Miss Martian.
Yeah.
They keep calling her a hunter. She doesn't, smell or sight. It's all your thoughts, and that's how she catches you.
Oh, okay. Okay, I see where you're getting that from now. Okay.
So she's definitely a telepath of that, right? And so and I like her being there for that, and it shows that they've been to the dark multiverse, as one of their places, and they picked her up, because that's how messed up the Fraction are, is they saw one of these dark versions from the dark multiverse and were like, hey, we can use her.
Yeah. The rest of the Flash family go to Mr. Terrific's lab. Wally gets them in, and they're going to work from there. Mainly because they think it'll be safe from everything. Meanwhile, we get Bart and Wallace sneaking around the spire. It's very Death Star. It's very the original Star Wars, with them sneaking around and like avoiding the guards and looking for what they find is a power supply, which their plan is to just take out. So of course the entire thing starts to like run out of juice, and they're like, wait, why is their battery gone? And very quickly they end up getting attacked, and the battery cracks open, and it turns out there's a person in there. We get
one of the conduit.
We get a kid in there who they race off with. They take him with them, and they steal one of the tank things. They get around what's her name again? Miss Murder?
Miss Murder.
I keep wanting to say Mrs. Death. It's so close.
It doesn't. It helps me too that like there's an AFI song called Miss Murder, so it's ingrained in my brain.
But anyway, so she's chasing them, and they're basically getting their asses handed to them. But when they realize that she can tell what they think, because the guy that was in the battery that's kind of weak and they're kind of carrying, he knows some stuff, and he's like, no, she uses her thoughts. You can't use that. He knows how the place works, and they're like, oh shit, well, let's just not think then. And Bart's like, see, I'm impulsive. This is where it's going to come in handy.
This is perfect.
Just act, don't think. Yeah, so that's how they get away. They steal one of the tank things and race off. And it's a fun sequence, Miss Murder jumps on top of it. They skid around. It's a good bit of action. It feels like the kids are getting one over on the villains, which is kind of nice at this point in the story. Especially since, if we're dealing with the sadness of Iris seemingly having died, having this more lighter part of the story to sort of lift us up again is kind of a nice counterbalance to that.
And not just that, too. This issue's full of them, too, because I got a chuckle out of them putting Mr. Terrific's eye up to the scanner so they can get into the lab.
Yeah.
That gave me a chuckle too, that they brought him along so they can get in, and he's the key. So, but yeah, he's Adams is balancing the sorrow with the comedy here pretty well.
Yeah, so they race back to the house with the tank thing, and they get out. Obviously, some of the adults there, I think Max Mercury and Wally are there, and they're kind of like, "Hey, you shouldn't have ran off and done that." And they're like, "No, hey, we got this kid. We are here. We found one of their tech. You can examine it now."
Mm-hmm.
And then they're like, "But there's like a storage part in the back of this. It's like a truck kind of thing."
Mm-hmm.
And they're like, "Oh, what's in the back?" And they open it, and the cliffhanger of this issue is that in the back we have Superman, Grodd, and who was the third character? There was
Captain Atom.
Captain Atom, and they're, I wouldn't say frozen per se because they're not frozen, but they're because obviously time's moving so fast. They're basically just still. So the Fraction have been kidnapping powerful people.
Mm-hmm.
Well, Grodd's not people, but you know what I mean. Powerful beings from around Earth. And I like this because one of the things that I liked about this premise, but we talked about maybe in the first issue, is one of the things that I loved about this as an idea for a Flash story is that it's this cataclysmic thing where the entire world's in jeopardy, but because only the speedsters are aware of it and can comprehend what's going on, and all of the other heroes are all just effectively frozen in time, it means that they're the only ones that can deal with it, and that makes it such a specific to this family of characters to do it. So this coming in here, it kind of feel like, oh, we're acknowledging that these other heroes are still around, but they're all just they're all basically vulnerable. They're all just waiting there to be picked off by these villains if they want them.
Which tells me too that they've also done homework, because those are all three really powerful.
Oh yeah.
Powerhouses of characters,
and it makes you wonder who else is in some of those other trucks and like containment cells. Like they've got a lot of things. Sure. And the other question, I suppose, is who is this kid? I assume he's a speedster from another universe.
Which, as we've seen, and with Adam's other stuff, he'd hinted about this with the Mad Max Flash stuff. So I'm sure it's from one of those ones that we've seen, and we'll be shocked. In a good way, not a bad way.
Although we know that their connection to the Speed Force is kind of their tech that started all this in the first place. Like, is this someone from their own planet that they developed this from? So it has like a dark start now?
He's an organic conduit. That's why he was in the battery cell. So
that's right.
Which cracks me up, because the way that they broke it open is Bart didn't have any other plan besides ram the guards with the battery. And that's where it broke up, and they found out he was in there. So he's definitely a speedster from somewhere.
Well, this explains why they want to collect organics then, because they can use them as power sources with their Speed Force connection. Right. That makes some sense. So
well, and I don't know if this is where Adam's going to go, because in the New 52, Grodd had a connection to the Speed Force, right? That was one of his things to when he became the king of Gorilla City. So I'm wondering if that's in there. Also, Superman lightly touches the Speed Force. They've talked in like Johns' run. That's where some of his super speed comes from.
I mean that's a bit of a stretch for me, just because it was postured in one run briefly. I don't think anyone remembers that or talks about it.
I remember it, but I'm also a Superman and Flash fan. So
the fact that Superman and Captain Atom are also there would make me think they're not going to bring up Grodd's connection to the Speed Force. But
yeah, probably not. But and then with Captain Atom too, because he's quantum powered, and if comics have taught me anything, quantum and speed stuff go together. So there's definitely a reason why all three of them were put into the same place by the Fraction. I just don't know what that reason is yet.
Well, I feel like that you're assuming it's just those three, whereas I'm assuming there's a lot more, and this is just the three that are in this containment.
Right, but those three in general together, right? Like, that tells me there's some form of plan from the Fraction that they put these three together, even if they're collecting others, because you would assume that, I don't know where Captain Atom is, but Superman is in Metropolis, and then you'd think that Grodd's either on the run somewhere or in Gorilla City, So why were they bringing them all back to there? I don't necessarily think it's to be a conduit, or just to remove them from the board.
Well, I think everyone they're kidnapping is coming back to there. I don't think that's specific to these three. Because I'm assuming they're kidnapping more. I don't necessarily think there's a connection between these three that wouldn't also be shared by other examples they may have kidnapped. There's maybe a reason why Adams has picked these three, because he wants to use them in the story later.
Right.
But
I'm just trying to...
don't get me wrong. It could be the all energy based. It could be the Superman's supercharged from the sun, Captain Atom's quantum energy and whatever, and then Grodd telepathic energy. Whatever. Yeah, maybe it's all energy based, and that's all fine. But I don't really care so much about why anyway. Like, I mean, that's like a plot thing they'll get to, whatever.
For me, it's curious.
For me, it's more interesting just because of how it connects back to this idea that all of these other powerful characters are just completely useless in this situation, and the Flash characters now have other people they have to save. They have like all these other heroes they have to try and hold, because not only they might be able to beat the Fraction back, but what if they still have some of these heroes in their like control or in their cells when they leave? Like, they have to make sure they get everyone out. Basically, they have to free everyone before they. But otherwise it's not
blow it up.
Otherwise, it's not just it's not a victory. Like, if they get away with like half of Earth's like superheroes, then shit. Like, they've kidnapped, Cold Snap's been taken by the by the Fraction, and he's on another Earth. I mean,
or it could be one of these things where they're trying to, reverse their, not reverse the technology or whatever, but how can they use these type for their own gain? Like you were talking about their power source. Like, what can they learn from Superman's physiology of pulling energy from the sun or whatever? So, but really, really good stuff. I just thoroughly enjoying this 1 Minute War. It's a fun little gimmick, and the Bart and Wallace together is something that I thoroughly enjoy through 2 issues at this point. So, I want more of that.
It was a nice light story to counteract the heaviness of where the story had left off from last main issue. And even to an extent the special, which obviously went into really murderous territory. And it did have me thinking throughout the issue, I'm like, oh, when's Godspeed gonna pop up?
Me too.
So looking out for that going forward. I suspect it's going to be a thing where he ends up kind of like helping the heroes, not because he wants to, but kind of in that, because like the enemy of my enemy is my friend kind of thing. I can see him like distracting the villains by like stabbing a bunch of them whilst the Flash family are trying to like stop everything,
I definitely feel like he's the counter to Miss Murder.
Oh yeah,
that's what I think. So
there's something there to that. There's something there. No, interesting. Yeah, no, enjoying the arc a lot. It's definitely the biggest, best arc that this Flash run's had, and is been consistently enjoyable so far. So, what are you rating the Flash 792? And I suppose mention the art, because we haven't really talked about that.
So Roger Cruz is definitely, who was doing the art in the ones before? I'm terrible.
I think it's been different every issue, this art.
Yeah. So I'll say Roger Cruz is serviceable enough. Like, he's not my favorite, but I also am not like bothered that it's his art. So I think he draws the speed stuff really well.
Actually, it may have been Cruz in the first issue, and then it switched to someone else in the second issue, and this is back to him, which would make sense because it's twice a month just now. So.
Twice a month, right? So yeah, again, it's not my favorite, but it's definitely not bad. It's stylistically, there's some manga influences in there that I can tell.
There's definitely some angular things at times. I think it works well on the kid characters, but I will say that everyone looks a bit young. Like Barry and Wally both look like they're teenagers. So I think that's something to mention.
So
yeah, I do miss Pasarin, because Pasarin on the regular issues before this event started, or before this arc started, I really liked the work on that. And maybe this is the right idea, is to like do this like arc with others and then have him come back for the next regular story. But yeah, so all right, what are you rating Flash?
I'm giving this an 8.5.
Yeah, I'll just go straight 8, I think, but it's a really enjoyable issue. I'm digging Flash a lot right now.